Going in games.
Hello there, ladies and gents. As always, it is AltaWibs, and today we will be delving into older formats with our second modern deck tech, and that's for Kiki-Pod.
Is that a Delver Secrets pun there, Wibs?
Maybe. Deal with it. Now this deck is a modern format staple. It features tons of powerful creatures, one spell that's soon to be reprinted that costs about $30, and arguably the most broken card that's still left off the modern ban list. Seriously, I do an Enchantress deck tech and Wizards reprints a 2-mana instant board wipe, so I figured, hey, let's do Pod and maybe they'll actually ban the damn thing. Let's dive in, shall we? So first we have our creatures. We have 4 Noble Hierarch, 4 Bird of Paradise, 1 Qasali Pridemage, 1 Voice of Resurgence, 1 Scavenging Ooze, 2 Wall of Roots, 1 Phantasmal Image, 1 Spellskite, 2 Deceiver Exarch, 1 Eternal Witness, 1 Aven Mindcensor, 3 Kitchen Finks, 1 Murderous Redcap, 1 Glen Archmage, 1 Linvala Keeper of Silence, 3 Restoration Angel, 2 Kiki-Jiki Mirrorbreaker, 1 Zealous Conscript. For our spells we have 3 Chord of Calling, 4 Birthing Pod. Onto our lands, 4 Misty Rainforest, 4 Arid Mesa, 4 Grove of the Burnwillows, 1 Sacred Foundry, 1 Temple Garden, 1 Steam Vents, 1 Breeding Pool, 1 Hallowed Fountain, 1 Stomping Ground, 2 Gavony Township, 1 Plains, 1 Forest. Alright, well there's a lot of one-ofs in there, but that's what the deck's about. Birthing Pod thrives on the amount of options it presents, and because of this, you get to run a whole lot of silver bullet cards. Now, it's a combo deck at heart, as you're trying to get some combination of Deceiver Exarch, Restoration Angel, Zealous Conscripts, and of course Kiki-Jiki, to just make a whole bunch of trigger shenanigans happen and get some huge army that then attacks all at once. Because of the critical mass of creatures we're running, if our opponent keeps us off Birthing Pod or Kiki-Jiki, we can still just get on the beatdown plan. You shouldn't be surprised as to how much work the likes of Kitchen Finks and Restoration Angel can do all by themselves. Now this is where I'd usually take you guys through the motions turn by turn, but the creatures we're playing aren't nearly as important as the casting costs they're printed with. So instead, I'm going to lay out the quickest ways for you guys to combo off, and then we'll get into the choices later. Now this is going to be pretty wordy and generally fast paced, so try to keep up. So Pod Chain 1 requires Pod, a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and 4 mana. So this is potentially a turn 4 win. You ready? So we're going to pod our 2-drop into Deceiver Exarch targeting Pod. Then we pod our 1-drop into Phantasmal Image, copying the Exarch and targeting our Pod. Next, we pod off the Phantasmal Image, which is now an Exarch, so its converted mana cost is 3, into a Restoration Angel, which then blinks the Exarch and then targets the Pod. Finally, we pod off our Angel into Kiki-Jiki himself, and just look at our opponent's stunned face. Biscuits and mustard. And Pod Chain 2 is largely the same, but we work off having 2 2-drops. Anyway, pod off your 2-drops into Deceiver Exarchs, and then try and decide whichever one has wronged you more in the past, then pod that one off into an Angel. In turn, pod that Angel into Kiki-Jiki, breaking the mirrors so you don't have to. Pod Chain 3 is probably my favorite, as it only requires you to have Pod and Murderous Redcap. As long as the Redcap hasn't yet persisted, you can pod it off in the Zealous Conscripts. The Conscripts will come back and untap the Pod, and then Redcap will come back and you can throw 1 damage up in the air like you don't care. Then you can pod that sumbitch off in the Kiki-Jiki, and then you get to make a real nice army of just humans instead of strange, ugly, blue hammerhead worms. With arms? Have you even looked at this card? It's holding a f***ing brain. Which, as long as it belongs to someone from the DCI, would explain why they haven't figured out yet that they should probably ban Pod. These are by no means the only ways of comboing off, but by now you probably have the gist of it. Now on to those card choices. Chord of Calling is worth mentioning before any of the creatures because it's pretty much the other half of our strategy. Being able to use your dudes as mana to just go and grab more dudes at instant speed is a fabulous thing to have when you're running so many value creatures. Bird and Hierarch are here to ramp and color fix. Having one of these in our opening hand makes just about any hand keepable. Pridemage is a versatile answer against hate cards and pretty much just kills it in the Affinity and Mirror match. Voice of Resurgence is just a good card. Have you read that text box? Being able to sack this thing off and keep a body on the field is magical. Scavenging Ooze is a beast for 2 huge reasons. Screw your Snapcaster Mage and screw your Goyf. Goyf! 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 Toasty! Spellskite is just a wonderful mind f***, isn't it? I mean, it does actually protect our combo, but it's almost better served just playing it out to mess with your opponent. People will just start playing around anything as soon as Spellskite's on the field. Phantasmal Image is just the most beautiful card. It's whatever you need it to be. Although he did lose a little ground when Wizards changed the Legend rule last year, being able to copy anything at will just should not be ignored. Eternal Witness lets you regurgitate your lost spells. It also has the really stupid interaction of being able to Chord of Calling for it, and then whenever the Witness hits the field, you just get your Chord back. Right? Modern's pretty cool. Aven Mindcensor is without a doubt one of the most annoying cards ever printed, so of course we're going to play it in this deck. Makes your opponent's $80 lands practically worthless and fights against the Mirror, Tron, and Scapeshift decks. Kitchen Finks does all this deck ever once. Just play it and beat face with it, pot it, persist it, blink it, pot it again, and it's just one of the best creatures ever printed. We've already commented on his awkward cousin, so let's just move on to his prissy aunt. Elendra Archmage is a creature very fond of the word no. Lightning Bolt? No. Cryptic Command? No. Liliana of the Veil? Hell no! And then you just get her back, and she does it again. Have you realized how good Persist is in this deck yet? Linvala is incredible against combo decks, and stops common hate cards like Pridemage and Spellskite from stopping us up in the main board. Now, Restoration Angel got touched on before, but there's almost too much to say about it. And when she's not saving our guys or setting up our combos, she's just bashing through the air for 3 without a care in the world. Needless to say, Restoration Angel is straight Value City furniture. 8 fetches is pretty standard, and we have Misty Rainforest and Arid Mesa here for the simple reason that they cover our color spread. To go along with those, we're running 1 of each shockland in our colors. That may seem a little random, as the deck requires more green mana than anything else, but Pod prides itself on the amount of options available to it, so I figured why the hell not. Making up for that though, we are running 4 Grove of the Burnwillows. 99% of the games we play, our opponent's life total is completely irrelevant, which pretty much means you just get to play Taiga, and I'm all for playing legacy duels in Modern. Gavony Township is here for when we just have to play fair games and beat the crap out of our opponents with our multitude of cascading costed creatures. I've won games beating people to death with Birds of Paradise. It's unbelievably satisfying. Rounding out our mana base, we have a few basics, and those are there just because we don't want to take all the damage from fetching sometimes. Also, Path is a thing. Well, mostly because Path is a thing. Now, sideboards in Modern are open to a lot of interpretation, but I think what I've assembled here is a nice just blend of things that should give you a lot of help in a multitude of matchups. So we have 2 Path to Exile, 2 Back to Nature, 1 Sowing Salt, 1 Thrun, the Last Troll, 1 Kitaki, War's Wage, 1 Ancient Grudge, 1 Izzet Staticaster, 1 Ethersworn Canonist, 1 Fulminator Mage, 1 Huntmaster of the Fells, 1 Scavenging Ooze, 1 Fiery Justice, 1 Shatterstorm. Path you want to bring in against opposing combo decks. Stealing targets away from Kiki and Splinter Twin is the name of the game, but it's also invaluable if dealing with threats from Steel Overseer and Affinity to Wormcoil Engine and Tron. Back to Nature is here so we don't get raffle stomped by Boggles, plain and simple. And if you're feeling frisky, I hear Twin is an enchantment too. Sowing Salt just ruins Tron's day, but it can also do a little bit of work in the Affinity and Scapeshift matchups. The all-holy Thrunfather is at his most pious when facing off against Control, but he can also do a lot of work against Jund and anything that, well, can't really get rid of him. Alright, Kitaki, well, I'm just going to give you a second to read what this card does. Yeah, Affinity's a good deck, I hear. This makes Affinity a bad deck. Ancient Grudge comes in against Affinity, who would have thought, and the Mirror. 2-for-1s are huge, and getting to blow up 2 things in either of these matchups can sway the game heavily in our favor. Izzet Staticaster just makes me smile. For one, the art is just gorgeous, but getting to flash this thing in against a field of X1s is so devastating in so many matchups. Rule of Law effects we can tutor are pretty good, I think, and Canonist is the cream of that very small crop. Effects like this make Storm and Living End players miserable, and we still get to use our pod as much as we want. Fulminator Mage has no shortage of good targets. From man lands to Tron lands, suffice to say lands are pretty important in Modern, and Fulminator Mage can be brought in a lot of matchups where Sowing Salt just isn't as good, and that's because you can tutor him out with the pod. Now back in Innistrad Standard, Huntmaster was the be-all end-all of things you wanted the pod out. It acts a lot like Kitchen Finks, but gives you a relevant second body as well. Bring this guy in against Control, and they have to deal with it immediately, or fall prey to the Ravager's serious beats. The second Scooze is just a short matches against Control and anything graveyard-based, and needless to say, he does that job really well. Fiery Justice is a really fun new inclusion. 5 damage divided as you want can be so backbreaking in so many matches. And as we said before, our opponent's life total usually doesn't even matter, so we can bring this in against things that have just lots of creatures and watch them cry. Shatterstorm gets the spot over Creeping Corrosion for one simple reason. Regenerate can matter. One Welding Jar keeping up an Arcbound Ravager can be the difference between life and death. And I'm not trying to blow up all the artifacts, I am blowing up all the artifacts. Well, that'll do it for our deck tech for Kiki Pod. As always, like, subscribe, check out all of our fancy little, social stuff. We have it all right here. Look, see, look. And always check out the deck lists in the bottom, right in the description. We have links to a whole bunch of things, and we're actually getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. So we're kind of brewing up something to give you guys, and we're probably going to cascade that down, give it to first, second, third. So if you guys have any input on how you might want to go about that, like just a random drawing, or the first thing we did was Riddle. So if you guys want us to do something sort of fun like that, tell us about it. Till next time, peeps. Whips out.
What?